My golden brother's fiancée wanted to take away my trust fund, and my parents supported them. My name is Clara Thompson, a 27-year-old woman from a modest town in the Midwest. Growing up, my family wasn't wealthy, but we had enough to get by. My parents, Margaret and Henry, ran a small but beloved local bookstore for over 2 decades. They instilled in me and my younger brother, Benjamin, the values of hard work and integrity. Benjamin, now 25, was always the golden child. He had a charm that won everyone over, especially our parents. While I was content staying out of the spotlight, focusing on my studies and later my career, Benjamin basked in the attention and leniency he received. 5 years ago, our grandfather passed away, leaving behind a trust fund designated solely for me. The conditions were clear: I couldn't access the funds until I turned 30, and even then, the money was to be used for specific purposes like purchasing a home or furthering my education. I respected these terms and planned to use the inheritance to start my own business, a dream I'd nurtured for years. Earlier this year, Benjamin announced his engagement to his girlfriend, Emily. Emily, 26, came from a well-off family and had a magnetic personality that endeared her to everyone. Initially, I liked her too, but things took a turn during a family dinner a few months ago. Out of nowhere, Emily brought up my trust fund, casually asking what I planned to do with the money once I could access it. Caught off guard, I mentioned my intentions to buy an apartment or start a business. She responded with a smile, saying, "That's so fortunate. Benjamin and I could really use some help with our wedding or maybe a down payment on a house." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but her gaze remained fixed, expecting a serious answer. My parents interjected, stating that the money was mine and not up for discussion, which seemed to end the conversation for the evening. However, the topic resurfaced repeatedly in subsequent family gatherings. Emily would make pointed comments about how rare it was to have such an opportunity to help family. Benjamin, initially silent, began to echo her sentiments, suggesting that since I wasn't using the money immediately, it wouldn't hurt to consider their request. I approached my parents, hoping they would set boundaries, but their response was disheartening. My mother suggested that Emily just wanted to feel included in the family and wasn't being pushy. I hadn't even used that word, but it resonated with how I felt. Feeling cornered, I reiterated that the trust fund wasn't accessible yet and that I had my own plans for it. Despite my efforts to stay calm and firm, the pressure continued to mount. At another family dinner, Emily pulled me aside, directly stating that I should reconsider my stance, implying that holding on to the money was selfish. I was taken aback by her boldness but calmly explained the situation once more. She responded coldly, saying, "I guess I misunderstood what kind of person you are." The next day, Benjamin called to apologize for Emily's behavior, attributing it to wedding stress, but added, "She's not wrong, though. You're in a position to help, and it wouldn't hurt to think about it." I began to question myself, wondering if I was being selfish or overreacting. Seeking clarity, I spoke with close friends who assured me I wasn't in the wrong. Yet, the situation weighed heavily on me, especially as my family seemed more interested in keeping the peace than supporting me. It became evident that Emily wouldn't take no for an answer, and Benjamin was aligned with her desires. My parents remained passive, avoiding confrontation. I realized that this issue wasn't going away and that I needed to stand firm in my decisions. After that uncomfortable conversation with Emily, things changed. The air around family gatherings grew tense. Emily would give me these practiced smiles, the kind that don't reach the eyes, and Benjamin, once my cheerful, teasing brother, became aloof, even cold. I tried to pretend things were fine, to salvage some normalcy, but deep down, I knew I was being slowly pushed into isolation. A week later, I received an invitation from Benjamin and Emily for lunch, just the 3 of us. I hoped it was a peace offering, a chance to set things right. Instead, I walked straight into a confrontation disguised as civility. We met at a quiet cafe near the edge of town. Emily started with small talk, asking about my job, my apartment, how I was holding up with work. Then, she leaned in, her tone shifting. "Clara," she said gently, "Benjamin and I were wondering if maybe you'd consider giving us a portion of the trust as a wedding gift. Not all of it, just enough to help us secure a place. It's such a unique opportunity you have." I froze. I repeated what I had said before: the trust fund wasn't accessible until I was 30, and even when it was, I had plans for it. She looked at me with disbelief, then disappointment. "I thought you were more generous than this," she said. "This isn't just about money. It's about showing that you care about your family." Benjamin sat quietly beside her, avoiding my eyes. I left that cafe with a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. Over the following weeks, the campaign continued, not as loud, but more insidious. Emily took her message to the extended family. I started getting calls from uncles and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. They'd open with pleasantries, then gently suggest that helping Benjamin and Emily would be the right thing to do. Even my parents, who had once dismissed the idea, began to soften. My mother would say things like, "Emily is just trying to be part of the family, Clara," or, "Benjamin hasn't had it as easy financially." It was baffling. We had grown up in the same household, gone to the same public schools, eaten the same meals. The difference was that I had saved, planned, and followed the rules. Benjamin had drifted, switching jobs, spending freely. But somehow, I was the one being labeled uncharitable. The turning point came at what I now call the ambush dinner. My parents invited me over, saying they wanted to talk, just a quiet family discussion. When I arrived, Benjamin and Emily were already seated, and the atmosphere was too formal, too rehearsed. My father opened the conversation with a sigh. "Clara, this tension isn't good for anyone. We need to find a way to move forward." Emily, her tone polished, added, "We're not asking for half. Just a show of goodwill, something that says you're with us, not against us." Benjamin finally spoke. "You're in a position to help. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." I looked at them, stunned. This isn't a loan I can give. I don't even have access to the trust. And when I do, it's earmarked. I have plans. I've had plans for years. My mother shifted in her seat. "Sometimes keeping the family together means making sacrifices, Clara. This could be that moment." That broke something in me. The people who raised me were now encouraging me to break a promise to myself, to compromise a future I'd spent years imagining, just to appease two people who hadn't respected a single boundary. I stood up. "I'm not changing my answer. I'm not giving away something that isn't even mine to give yet. And if this is what family unity looks like, I'm not sure I want any part of it." No one followed me out the door that night. After that evening, I received fewer calls, but the pressure didn't let up. Emily started posting thinly veiled comments on social media about greedy people and fake family support. I ignored it at first. But when one of my coworkers discreetly told me that someone claiming to be a relative had called HR asking about my salary, I knew it had gone too far. I called my lawyer. She was calm and understanding. After I laid everything out, the harassment, the manipulation, the digging into my personal information, she told me plainly, "This is harassment, Clara. You have the right to protect yourself." She helped me draft a cease and desist letter. It was the hardest email I've ever sent, addressed to Emily with a copy to Benjamin. It wasn't threatening, just firm, factual, and resolute. The backlash was immediate. Benjamin called me, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "You're taking this too far, Clara. A lawyer? A legal letter? She's my fiancée. You're treating her like a criminal." "I'm treating her like someone who crossed every boundary I set," I replied. "This isn't just about the money anymore. It's about the fact that none of you listened, not once, when I said no." The call ended in silence. For the first time in months, the messages stopped. The phone went quiet. And even though the quiet was filled with sadness, it was also filled with peace. After the cease and desist letter was delivered, the storm seemed to pass, at least on the surface. Emily stopped posting about family betrayal and greedy relatives on social media. The messages from extended family slowed to a trickle, then stopped. Even my parents, who had been indirectly pressing me to reconsider, went quiet. But I knew the silence wasn't peace. It was just the calm before whatever came next. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was hollow. One afternoon, I received a message from my cousin Eliza, one of the few people who had believed me from the start. She had heard from someone at a family gathering that Emily was still trying to discredit me behind the scenes. "She's saying you don't care about family," Eliza told me. "That you're hiding behind legal papers because you're afraid of facing the truth." The truth? I had been facing the truth every day for months, that the people I loved most had chosen convenience over me. What's worse, Eliza revealed that Emily had been quietly digging for more information. She'd asked relatives if they knew how much was in my trust fund. She'd questioned whether I had other savings, investments, or accounts. It was no longer about a request, it had become a hunt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened a new folder on my computer and started saving everything. Screenshots of messages, recordings of voicemails, summaries of conversations. I wasn't planning to use them, not yet, but I needed to be prepared. I couldn't let myself be blindsided again. Then came the HR incident. I was called into my supervisor's office at the university where I worked. He was kind but concerned. "Clara, someone called pretending to be a family member. They asked about your salary, your benefits. We didn't give out any information, of course, but it was unsettling. I knew immediately who it was. I had no proof, but there was no doubt in my mind. That night, I broke down. Not because of the betrayal or the loneliness, but because I realized something terrifying. This situation wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was dangerous. I called my lawyer the next morning. She listened calmly, then told me, "It's time to escalate. We're sending a second letter, and this one's going to include a warning about legal consequences if the behavior continues." It was sent within the hour. Benjamin called me the next day, his voice low and tight. "You really did it. You escalated again. Are you happy now?" "No, Benjamin," I said. "I'm not happy. I'm exhausted. I've asked nicely. I've begged. I've explained. You didn't listen." She didn't stop. He was quiet. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I didn't know it had gotten this bad." I wanted to believe him. But I couldn't afford to anymore. The next few weeks were uneventful, but not peaceful. I kept my circle small. My work became my sanctuary. Every morning I opened the bookstore for my parents. I had taken on a more active role since they were stepping back, and I poured myself into planning for the business I wanted to launch when I turned 30. Then came the turning point, a mistake that shattered the illusion completely. It happened late one evening, just before I closed up the shop. I got a notification from the family group chat, which I had muted for weeks. I opened it out of curiosity and nearly dropped my phone. Benjamin had sent a message clearly intended for Emily, but accidentally sent it to the whole family group. It read, "I found your messages. You've been lying to everyone, even me, and bragging about getting Clara to cave. What is wrong with you?" Attached were screenshots of Emily's private messages to her friends. One said, "Don't worry. Her parents will push her. Clara always folds under pressure." Another read, "She's so obsessed with her business dream. It's sad. The trust should have been split between both of them from the start. I'm just making it happen." The group chat exploded. My mother's message came first, "Emily, is this true?" Then my father, "We believed you were acting in good faith. Were we wrong?" Emily tried to backtrack, claiming the messages were taken out of context. I was venting. "I didn't mean any of it seriously," she wrote. But no one replied. Not this time. Benjamin didn't say another word in the group. Hours later, he called me. "I didn't know, Clara," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't know she said those things. I thought she just wanted help, not to manipulate everyone." "You didn't want to know," I replied. "And now everyone else sees it too." "I'm ending it," he said. "The engagement. Everything." I believed him. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the villain in my own family. After Benjamin's call, everything shifted. Emily's silence in the group chat was louder than any excuse she could give. She had spent months weaving a narrative about me, that I was cold, selfish, ungrateful, and now the truth had surfaced in her own words. The group chat stayed quiet for days, the usual flurry of family recipes, birthday wishes, and baby photos replaced with awkward stillness. When I next saw my parents, they looked different. We met at the bookstore early one morning. My father unlocked the door, and my mother was already waiting at the counter with 2 cups of coffee. I prepared myself for another emotional ambush, but what I got instead was an apology. "We didn't know," my dad said. "We believed her because we wanted to." It was easier than questioning what she was really doing. My mother nodded, eyes brimming. "We let you down, Clara. I let you down." I didn't cry, not then. I just nodded, grateful for the acknowledgement. It didn't erase the pain or the months of isolation, but it mattered. It meant they saw me now, really saw me, not just the version Emily painted. Benjamin called again a few days later. "It's over," he said. I moved out of her apartment. I called off the engagement. There was something raw in his voice. He wasn't angry. He wasn't blaming me. He was just tired, and maybe ashamed. "Clara," he continued, "I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to make things right." I told him what I had told myself: healing wasn't a switch you flipped. It was a door you cracked open, little by little, every time someone chose honesty over comfort. And that day, Benjamin took the first step through that door. But the fallout from Emily's manipulation didn't end there. I started hearing from extended family again, only this time, their messages were different. Apologies. Regrets. Confessions that they had believed her because she was so sweet, so put together. One aunt even wrote, "I'm sorry I didn't listen to you sooner. You've always been the quiet one, Clara, and I mistook your silence for guilt." That was wrong. Forgiveness, like healing, isn't linear. I didn't respond to every message. But I read them. And I felt something inside me loosen. Meanwhile, Emily vanished from the social scene. Her social media went dark. The wedding venue she had boasted about lost their reservation. The boutique dress was returned. Someone said they saw her leaving town, whether temporarily or for good, I didn't know. I didn't care. What mattered was this: the narrative had changed. Not because I fought louder, but because I stood still while the truth revealed itself. And it wasn't over. My lawyer and I kept everything, every message, every note, every interaction. We filed an official report regarding the impersonation call to my workplace. We weren't pressing charges, not yet, but we made it clear, if there was one more intrusion, there would be consequences. For the first time in this entire ordeal, I felt like I had regained control. I went back to planning for my future. My 30th birthday wasn't far off, and the trust fund, still untouched, still sacred, represented something bigger now. It wasn't just a financial cushion or the start of a dream. It was a symbol of every moment I stood my ground, every boundary I held firm. I began drafting the business plan for my dream, a community center and bookstore hybrid, where children could read freely, where teenagers could gather, where women could work and share stories. It would take time. It would take heart. But that's what I had now: time, heart, and the peace of knowing I hadn't betrayed myself. Then came the letter. A handwritten note in simple stationery, left at the shop's doorstep. Clara. I'm sorry for everything. Not just what I did, but what I allowed to happen. I know now that I believed Emily because it suited my fears, not because it suited the truth. I don't know how to undo the harm. But I'm going to start by rebuilding our relationship on your terms, not mine. Benjamin. It was short. It wasn't flowery. But it was real. And for the first time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could grow from all of this. Months passed. The quiet remained, but it was no longer tinged with anxiety, it was purposeful, restorative. I stopped checking my phone for unwanted messages. I stopped bracing for emotional ambushes. The weight that had pressed down on my shoulders for nearly a year began to lift. On my 30th birthday, I unlocked the trust fund. I didn't touch the money immediately. Instead, I let the moments sit with me. I stood in the center of my modest apartment, turned off my phone, and allowed myself to breathe deeply, fully, for the first time in what felt like forever. The trust wasn't just a number in a bank. It was every hour I spent swallowing hurt. Every moment I stood alone when I could have given in. Every sacrifice I made to protect a version of my future that no one else understood. The business plan was ready. The permits were in motion. The lease on a bright, sun-filled building 2 blocks from my parents' bookstore had been signed. It needed work, the floors were uneven, and the paint peeled, but it was mine. And it was going to be the heart of something that belonged to me, and maybe even to my community. I called it the Reading Hearth. A place to gather. A place to learn. A place to feel safe, especially for people like me, who knew what it felt like to be misunderstood in your own home. The day before the opening, Benjamin came by. He had been quiet for a while, not absent, but cautious. Our relationship had been rebuilding slowly, respectfully. He never pushed. He simply offered to help when he could, and listened when I chose to speak. He stood in the middle of the freshly painted room, surrounded by shelves and soft chairs and unstacked boxes of books, and said, "It's beautiful, Clara. You made something real." I nodded. I made something for myself. There was a beat of silence before he asked, "May I be part of it, someday?" I didn't answer right away. But eventually, I said, "Yes. When you're ready to be part of it, not just use it." He smiled. It was the most honest expression I'd seen on his face in years. My parents came to the opening. They brought a bouquet of wildflowers and stood near the back, letting me take center stage. My mother cried quietly when I thanked her and my father in my opening remarks, not for being perfect parents, but for trying to make things right when they saw they were wrong. Emily was never mentioned again. Her name became a ghost in our family, acknowledged only in the lessons she left behind. Eventually, I learned that she had moved to another state, far away. She tried to rebuild her life, or so I heard. I bore her no malice. I simply wanted her to stay away. Justice didn't always come through courts or confrontation. Sometimes, justice came through distance, silence, and the refusal to surrender what was yours. And for me, that was enough. People ask sometimes if I regret not helping my brother financially. My answer is always the same. I didn't withhold money. I upheld boundaries. I didn't turn my back on my family. I demanded that my family treat me with the same respect they expected from me. That's not selfishness. That's self-preservation. What I learned painfully, beautifully, is that being kind doesn't mean being available to everyone who asks. That love isn't measured by sacrifice, but by how deeply you honor both yourself and others. And that true support doesn't ask you to betray yourself. So here I am. The reading hearth is thriving. Children curl up on beanbags with picture books. Teenagers gather for poetry nights and open mics. Adults browse novels and sip coffee in soft lamplight. And every now and then, someone comes in and says, "You built this?" Yes. I built this. With clarity, with pain, with purpose. And with love, the kind that's chosen, not demanded. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.